Listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, DSABC mentors. This is Mary Gregory, and I welcome you to our webinar. Welcome back to DSABC Mentoring for the 2014-2015 school year. We still are waiting for a few more attendees to join us, but in essence of time, we will keep to the schedule. So this year is a very exciting year for DSABC, as this year marks our 25th year of the mentoring program. So I personally want to thank each and every one of you for your commitment to mentoring, and also to the outstanding commitment by your companies and businesses for supporting DSABC for so many years and really making a difference in the lives of so many Danbury Public School students over this past quarter century. So before we begin, a couple of housekeeping or logistical items as we move forward with the presentation. I will be presenting just a variety of information about a successful start to the school year. You will have an opportunity to ask questions or make comments throughout the entire presentation. This is certainly not formal in any way, so at any point in time that you have a question or a comment that you would like addressed, please feel free to type in your question where you see the question box. So to ensure that everybody can hear my voice and see the presentation, I'd like to ask all the participants now to just confirm that you can indeed hear me and see the presentation by typing in the question box, yes. Okay, thank you very much. And now you have you know where that you can type in your questions or comments. So to begin, what can we expect as terms of when can we start seeing our students again? I get that question all the time from mentors, and in my visits to the schools the past week, I've heard from many, if not most of the liaisons, that the students are just as eager, and many of them sought out their school liaisons the very first day of school, wondering when their mentor was going to see them. So without further ado, all mentors will resume meeting by the week of September 19th. I know that many of the school liaisons have already been in touch with their mentors. Many of the mentors are scheduled to start next week if they have not started already. But the very last date, the latest that you will start, is the 29th. At the elementary, middle school, Abitech, and ACE mentors, your school liaisons will be contacting you if they have not already. If we have any mentors from Abitech, just please note that we do have a new liaison there. Her name is Susan Craberry. She's the school psychologist and is very eager and excited to meet with the mentors and to work with the mentoring program there. The other change that we have is that Broadview Middle School, the liaison there will be leaving as of the 19th of September, and we are still determining a replacement for him, so we will keep you posted on that. However, you will start with your student before Michael leaves. For mentors of Danbury High School students, mentors of students in grades 10 through 12, we will be pulling those students' schedules next week. The reason we don't pull them sooner than that is because the students have up to 2 weeks to change their schedules. So if we started pulling them right when school started, then we would just have to pull them again and get back to you with changes. So rather than be redundant, we figured it would be best to wait until their schedules were finalized for the year. We will then determine the days and times that the student have free period, communicate that out to the mentors to select a day that works for them. We then notify the student's guidance counselor, and then they will let the student know which day to start. And you will meet your student outside of that career center, is where you'll connect just as you did last year, and then feel free to mentor in the building, wherever you find the space or wherever you had met last year. Mentors of freshmen for Danbury High School, there will be an orientation, which you've already been invited to, unless we have just recently found out that your student is indeed at Danbury High School. We did have some missing students that we now know that they are there. So if you are a mentor or freshman and you have not been notified, you will be notified by the end of the day today of the orientation, which is taking place Thursday, September 18th at Danbury High School during first period, which begins at 7:20 a.m. We have a breakfast for the mentors as well as the mentees, and that will be held in the Career Center, which is located in the cafeteria. And this is a breakfast presented by myself and by Dan Donovan, who is the assistant principal for the freshman class. During that orientation, mentors and mentees will review their schedule. They will together determine their meeting time. We do have a little agreement or contract agreement to explain to the freshmen what their expectations are. Mentoring at the high school level, we do expect that the students, as they are becoming young adults, to become more responsible for their participation as in the program with their mentor. Just a quick update, Danbury Public Schools, what's new? Lots of exciting things have happened over the summer. Park Avenue School, Stanley Rough School, and Shelter Rock School have all had additions put on to their building, which means that they are receiving additional students. These additional students have been coming to them. They did some pocket redistricting, meaning not all neighborhoods were redistricted, but just certain areas and certain students from the following schools: Ellsworth, Millridge, Primary, and Morris Street schools. We do have some students who are now attending the schools that received additions. We, at this point, are pretty sure where all the kids are, and those mentors will be notified of their new assignment if that does affect you. In addition, Danbury Public Schools also opened a new middle school, which is located in the former Millridge Intermediate building. The school is now called the Westside Middle School Academy, and this houses the magnet programs of STEM, which was formerly at Rogers Park Middle School. So if you did have a student who participated in the STEM program at Rogers Park, they will now be at the Westside Middle School Academy. And also the other magnet program is the Global Studies, which will eventually have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, but for this school year is starting with just 6th graders. Administrators, we have 4 new principals and over 90 new hires for teachers. So which is very exciting for the district, but also means that some of these new staff people may not be fully aware of what DSABC is or what you guys do with their students. So if you are in a building with a new principal, I encourage you to go introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about what you do as a mentor. I've had the opportunity to meet with a couple of the principals, and certainly the school liaisons are informing them, but I think it would be really great if you guys felt free to go introduce yourselves and welcome the new principals and teachers to Danbury Public Schools. What's also new is a new food policy, which I did send an email out the second day of school. So basically the bottom line is that you're not to bring any outside food into the building for your student. So if you meet with your student and you bring your own lunch, that would be okay, but you're not to bring food to the student. So no snacks, no treats, no candy, etc. We do ask that mentors follow this food policy. It is not a policy of DSABC, it is a Board of Education policy. The other change is standardized tests. I know that we've all been familiar over the many years of the Connecticut Mastery Test, better known as CMTs, and our CAP tests, which took place usually the 2nd and 3rd week roughly of March. We are now moved away from that, and now in line with Common Core, the students will be taking what's called the SBACs. These are not will not be administered during just a 2-week period like the CMTs. It will be scattered and fluid. The students take the tests on a computer. So we really don't know how, if that will impact mentoring. It's just something to be aware of, and something you may hear of down the line during this year. So thank you all for participating. For those mentors who did participate in our year-end survey, we also surveyed the students and the school liaison. So here are some results of our what our students had to say about having their mentors, having you guys in their lives. Out of the 45 elementary school students that responded to our survey, 100% liked having their mentor. 96% wanted to continue with their mentor this school year. Playing a game was the most liked activity, followed by having lunch together. And oh, this will be a shock, doing homework was the least liked activity. Out of the 62 middle and high school students who responded to our survey, 94% enjoyed having their mentor, 81% wants to continue with their mentor this school year. When asked in what ways did your mentor help you this school year, the 3 top responses were, was a supportive friend, listened to my problems and gave me good advice, and provided me with encouragement. So kudos to all of you mentors. You really clearly have made an impact on these students, as evidenced by their positive responses here. So very quickly, I'm just going to kind of do, I guess, a little refresh from training. So I'm calling it a DSABC Mentoring a Primer, just so a little, refresh to remind us all of what our expectations are as we mentor for this coming school year. So some logistics. One, we ask to please wear your mentoring badge when you go to mentor at your mentoring session. If you've misplaced or lost your badge, not a problem. Just shoot me off an email and we will make a new badge for you, and we will forward it to the school that you're assigned so you have it ready the next time you visit. We also like to remind mentors to please sign in the mentor log. That is really the best way for those school liaisons to monitor who's coming in on a regular basis. Space to mentor, of course, continues to be a challenge as the Danbury Public Schools, as all of you know, are crowded and space is at a premium. Particularly even at Danbury High School, we did get kicked out of our kind of solitude mentoring place last year in the media center. So please just check in with your liaison to just be sure where you can and cannot mentor at the schools. This is a big one. This issue has come up a lot with my meeting with school liaisons, and that's the call ahead. So I know I go over this during mentor training, so I think it's worth reminding everyone now to please call ahead to see if your student is in attendance. And when you call ahead, please call ahead to the main number of the school, not to your liaison. All of our liaisons are either social workers, psychologists, or counselors, meaning that they are either testing or counseling students most of the time and are not necessarily right there at a phone or even access to their email immediately. So in terms of checking attendance or to call to say that you're going to have to miss the meeting, please call the main number and relay this message to the secretary. The other piece of logistics is please refer to the Danbury Public School calendar. I did send a welcome email out the first day of school, which did have a link to the calendar. You can also get the calendar on our website, as well as the Danbury Public School website, or when you go to your mentee's school, they will have copies of the calendar there. Just please refer to it before you go out to mentor, because there will be weird days that won't be on your radar screen that the school will be off. There has been a change, too, in terms of early dismissals. the district is no longer doing traditional early dismissals for professional development days. They are changing to something that's called an early release, where the students will just be released an hour early rather than a half day. So that's good news for mentors in that it'll be one more day that you are able to mentor, because I know some of those abbreviated days in the past made mentoring not possible for some of you. And as always, if you have any issues or questions, challenges, please address them early, either to your school liaison, the classroom teacher, or to myself. We'd rather be able to help guide you through any challenging times and help you to be successful in your mentoring relationship. And we certainly don't want it to be a frustrating experience. So we just, again, encourage you to address issues early on. Our policy: we are a school-based mentoring program. This means that all the mentoring takes place on school grounds, school year, school day. There is no mentoring outside of school. That is all you are covered for in terms of liability. And our program is not set up to monitor community-based mentoring. So just a reminder that the mentoring needs to take place during school, and that really is for your protection as much as that is for the protection of the child. If it is a school-based, a school-sponsored event, such as a concert, something of that nature, then absolutely feel free to attend those functions. Gift giving: our policy is that we prefer that mentors do not give gifts to their students. However, if mentors do feel inclined to give a gift, we ask that you keep it to one time of year and keep it to $15, that's $15 or less, and keep it somewhat in line with a school-based theme or something appropriate educationally. Electronic communications: mentors should not be emailing, texting, calling their students. I know that there is some email communication sometimes if mentors are traveling or go to Florida, let's say, for example, for the winter, and those are usually monitored through the school liaison. That's perfectly fine, but there should be no communication directly with the student electronically. The exception to that is mentors of students in grades 9 through 12 may use electronic communication for the purposes of scheduling or having to reschedule your mentoring sessions. And same with social media. We have a pretty detailed policy regarding social media, but the bottom line is, one, please do not use your personal social media platform to break any confidential information regarding your mentee. You should never mention your mentee or anything disparaging about Danbury Public Schools on your social media sites. Please do not friend your mentees on your social media sites, and just use good common sense when it comes to that. And if anyone wants a detailed copy of all of our policies regarding electronic and social media, we do have that available on our website, and I also certainly can make those available for you. And then the food policy, which I had sent out last week, as well as I talked a little bit about before. Before I move on, are there any questions or comments about any of our logistics or policies? Okay, I'm going to move on. So just a refresher on what are mentor roles and responsibilities, and I'm going to kind of go through these quickly because I know that you guys have all gone through this with training, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I do think that it is important to just remind ourselves as we start a new year on what is our role as a mentor. So let's start with the do's. As a mentor, you are supposed to serve as a positive role model. We ask that you are not judgmental. And part of that is, I think that every person is judgmental in that you come to any situation with your own life experiences and your own sets of values and viewpoint of the world. So I think what is really a better way of saying that is that we just ask that you might be mindful of what some of your judgments might be and kind of check them at the door when you go to mentor your student. We ask that you give attention to the child and that you're able to react well to stressful or frustrating situations. Listen and communicate on the child's level, that you don't engage in drug or alcohol abuse, that you meet weekly with your student and call the school if you can't show up. And we had talked a little bit about that earlier. Please call the main number, not the liaison in that case. We ask that mentors serve a minimum of 1 school year in the program and that you maintain confidentiality at all times. And I'll go into a little bit more in-depth reminder of what our confidentiality issues are. What are you not to do? You are not to ever replace the role of the parent or guardian, even if you know or think you can do a better job. Your role as the mentor really is to be their friend, their confidant, not to be their parent or guardian. We ask that you do not interfere with the school policies and procedures. They are there for a purpose, so we ask that all of our mentors do adhere to those. We also advise mentors not to expect dramatic changes for whatever the reason is that the student was referred into the program. It is slow and steady wins the race. All of you in attendance today are pretty seasoned mentors, so you know that already. But this is a big one, the next point, and that is please don't feel that you have to provide the solutions to the issues that the student might be facing. Over the years that I've been involved with this, I do see that mentors can sometimes have a tendency to get overwhelmed by whatever the child's personal or home life situation is. And so it really is a reminder that that really is not your role. You're not there to fix or provide solutions. You're really there to be a friend and a support. You're not to be a chaperone or teacher's aide. So if you want to go chaperone the trip to the zoo, feel free, but that is not an expectation of your role as the mentor. You certainly, absolutely should not be utilized as an extra set of hands for the teacher or a teacher's aide. So in other words, if the teacher is relying on you to sit down with your mentee to, for example, complete all the homework that he or she didn't get done over the course of the week, that is not your role. And if the teacher is relying on you for that purpose, that needs to be addressed. You are not to be a source of cash goods or services to the student, the family, or their school. So again, how does this come up? This can come up in a variety of ways. The student may come to you and say, will you buy 3 chocolate candy bars for our band fundraiser? If you want to, feel free, but again, that's not an expectation. But going back to our gift-giving policy, one of the reasons why we have the gift-giving policy, we have it for several reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is that you do not want to become a source of these cash goods or services to the student or the family. So you just don't want to put yourself in a position where the student may be coming to you for any particular kind of item. So that's just something to keep in mind. You are not to be a reward or punishment. This does not happen often, but it does happen on occasion where teachers, or we've had incidences of principals, will sometimes use the mentor as behavior modification. So Johnny, you did not behave this week, so you cannot see your mentor. Again, happens rarely, happens on occasion, however, so it is something to be mindful of. And if that is happening, that needs to be addressed ASAP. And you are not to break the trust that that child has established with you unless it's life-threatening. And I will get into, as a reminder, just examples of when you would break the confidentiality piece. So I'm just going to pause for 1 minute. And if anyone has any questions or comments about your mentor roles and responsibilities, I'd be happy to address them now. Okay, I'm going to move on then. So speaking of confidentiality and mentoring, so there's two sides of this confidentiality equation, just like there is in all we do here at DSABC. We have our mentor component and our school component. So I'm going to start with the mentor confidentiality piece. You never know who is listening to you tell someone about the student you mentor. So although we want you very much to share your mentoring experience, because frankly our best source of new mentors are existing mentors encouraging others to participate, we just ask that you keep your students' name, identity, and their personal circumstances confidential. So no last names, no any information that could easily make them identifiable, you should not do. Also, this has come up a couple of times, and I think it's not ill-intended. I think that mentors maybe don't understand. So I think I want to spend some time about this next piece. Do not talk with the school staff about your student or their families in open spaces, such as the main office, for example. Do not be under the assumption just because somebody works at the school as a teacher, a safety advocate, resource officer, secretary, that they know about your student's set of circumstances. Many times they do not. So it is not appropriate. We have had mentors who have been speaking freely with the safety advocate, for example, in the central office about their students' family life situation. That is absolutely not appropriate. And many times the teachers aren't even privy to everything that is going on with the student's life. So again, your first line of defense is always the school liaison. So if you feel like you need to talk through you know, a situation that maybe your student shared with you at a particular session, please go to your school liaison first. They're the best equipped to help guide you. And please maintain the trust that was built in the relationship. So just like any other friendship or relationship that you have, you know, just because they're a kid, they still are, they should still be able to expect from you a certain level of trust and confidentiality. So we ask that you maintain that. On the school side, the school by law must maintain information in confidence. These are called the FERPA laws, Federal Educational Right to Privacy Act. We've gone over this through mentor training before. I think sometimes in mentor training some of this is conceptual, and then when you're actually kind of living the whole mentoring experience and as a mentor and you become more and more vested in your relationship with the student, you want more and more information, which is human nature. But the school is limited to what they can tell you by law. So I think that's just a good reminder for mentors as we start the school year. I know sometimes it can be a frustration for mentors, which is understandable. However, you do need to understand that the school personnel do have certain laws that they need to abide by to. So when you're seeking information, just keep that in mind. So we're going to talk a little bit about, just as a reminder, when to break that confidentiality, what to do in that situation. So you would break that confidentiality if the student is a harm to themselves or to others, if you suspect that they're a victim of any kind of abuse, if you suspect that they or anyone in their family is involved in illegal, and I define illegal activity as criminal activity. Questions have come up, what if they're in this country illegally? We're not concerned about that, but we are concerned about keeping kids safe. So who's a mandated reporter and who is not? So you as a mentor are not a mandated reporter, which means you're not bound by law to report suspected abuse. Anybody can, but you are not legally bound to. However, school personnel are. So as with anything else, your first line of defense should be the school liaison or whoever you're comfortable with at the school to share information if the student says anything or indicates anything to you that you think that they're in harm's way. So before I move on to that, because I think that confidentiality piece is very important and it can be a little bit murky at times, are there any questions or comments that you would like me to address regarding that right now? Okay, I'm going to move on then. So these are just some things to think about as we start the new year. So as with everything else, right, there's a process or a life cycle, let's say, and that the same holds true for a mentoring relationship. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is the stage of your relationship. Where are you at in your particular point in time with your student? We did hold a webinar back at the end of the last school year that I went into this in a lot of detail, and that webinar is posted to our website if you're interested in taking a look at that, kind of as a refresher if you didn't participate, if you didn't get a chance to see it. And if you didn't get the chance to see it at all, gives you some good information in terms of ways to think about your own relationship with the child that you mentor. So broadly, the life cycle of the mentoring relationship has a beginning, a building stage, a testing stage, and the transition. So I'm going to assume most of you are not in the beginning stage of your relationship because you have all mentored before, and many, if not all of you, are in an established relationship. Some of you, however, may have started your relationships towards the end of last school year, and just like in academics we hear about the summer slide, the same holds true with mentoring, believe it or not. There have been studies that show that summer gap, that 10-week period that or more for if you guys had stopped your mentoring earlier in June, whatever progress you made with your student over the course of last year, some of that slips back. So if you had started your relationship in the spring, you still may be somewhat in that beginning stage of your mentoring relationship. So what that feels like is it could be awkward, you're still getting to know each other, you're still kind of exploring maybe where you have similar interests or where your differences are, and you may still be kind of figuring out what is the expectation of the relationship on both ends, on your end as well as with the child. And you may want to start setting up some parameters, and this would be the case, I guess, with all mentors in terms of where are we going to meet this year. Here we are at the start of a new school year, so what's kind of going to be our routine this year, and all that will start to be established as you begin the new school year. And what are some common pitfalls that can happen in these beginning stages? The first and foremost is that the mentors make all the decisions. And it really should be child-focused. The kid should really have a say in the activities that you're participating in. The mentors really shouldn't be coming in with an agenda, so to speak, but it really needs to be a give and take. Missed meetings can be a problem at this stage, and also misinterpreting the child's cues. So, the student may be quiet, and the mentor may take that as interpret that as, the kid doesn't want to be with me, when in fact, the child is showing up and does, but just may be shy or just may not quite trust why you're there for them. They may have had a lot of adults who've let them down before in their life, and they're still trying to figure out why you would be interested. So that's one example of how mentors can misinterpret the child's cues. And you may be expecting too much too soon. So, we kind of come in sometimes to these situations, I'm going to fix it, or, we hear all these wonderful success stories and I kind of want to have that feeling immediately. That will come over time, but not in this beginning phase of mentoring. The next phase is the building stage, and I'm going to make the assumption that probably most of you are in this particular phase of your relationship. So what it feels like is that you guys are learning more about each other and maybe opening up more. So your student may be sharing more about their life with you, and you may be feeling comfortable to share more about yourself with them. And as you share this information, you're starting to build trust with one another. At this point in the building relationship, you have some established routines. You know, maybe you bring a bag of goodies with activities to participate in, or you have a favorite game that you like to play together, or whatever the case may be. And at this phase, you also might be ready to help your mentee set some goals, whether they're personal goals or academic goals. You may feel that you guys are ready to do that, and your student may be seeking that or receptive to that idea. So what are some common pitfalls that can happen during this particular phase? And these are things just to think about as we start the new school year. Your mentee may start becoming really dependent upon you, so they may be kind of pressuring you to spend time outside of school together. They may want to, communicate with you outside of school. They may want to text you or call you or email you, whatever the case may be. So they really might become very reliant on you. And mentors can also become very overwhelmed by the problems or circumstance faced by the student. So think of it this way. So this building stage is happening, and you're sharing more and more about each other, and maybe the more the student starts to share with you, you as the caring adult in their life may be overwhelmed by some of what you're hearing. And although this can sometimes be a little disconcerting, just be rest assured that it's very normal, and it's really a good time to reach out to your school liaison or certainly come to me, and we can kind of talk through how you can best help that child in the context of what your role is as mentor. I know many mentors, want to, try and fix whatever's happening with the child's life, or may have a perception that the school is not doing enough for the student, when in fact the school likely are doing all that they can. They just can't share that with you. So this can all feel very overwhelming. And I just ask that mentors kind of don't kind of drown in that feeling of being overwhelmed, but to really seek out support, and we can work through those issues together. And as a mentor, you may also feel a little underappreciated. So you may feel, I guess it's like parenting, right? So I guess that you may feel underappreciated by your student, particularly if they're younger, or even so much so if they're middle schoolers. The kids just don't have that perspective yet of what you mean to them. They get that as they get older. And so sometimes you can feel a little underappreciated, and especially if you've been in a relationship for a while and you guys are kind of humming along, and the schools think it's great, you're in this great relationship and it seems very well established. They may not give you the feedback that you need, so you might feel a little, so that's a normal feeling during this stage. And again, I just reiterate, just always there's always help and support out there, so don't be afraid to kind of share whatever it is you're experiencing at that point. The next stage of the mentoring life cycle to keep in mind as you move along with your relationship is the testing phase. So this one can kind of like wall up mentors out of left field, because here you are, you're feeling really good about yourself, you're feeling really good about your mentoring relationship, maybe were in that building phase last year and the year before, and you're really excited to start this school year. Say you were mentoring an elementary student, and bam, they go to middle school. And what happened to my sweet little elementary student? Now, they grew 3 inches, and puberty has hit, and they want to hang out with their friends, and the student may feel conflicted. Where they really want to be with their mentor, but they really want to be with their friends too. Or they really want to be with their mentor, but they're going to test now. Now you have this established relationship. Sometimes the kids may really want to test your commitment to them. So how does that feel as a mentor? So for many mentors, this is very frustrating because you feel like maybe you lost some ground that you had spent so much time building. And it can also be pretty confusing as well. And where mentors fall down in this phase, and it's certainly understandable, is that you may feel less interested in mentoring. Like, forget it. I'm not going to keep showing up if he's going to have a pout on his face, or I'm not going to show up and she's going to blow off our meetings. Very common, very normal, natural feelings. And you may take it personally, but it's really not personal at all. Sometimes the kids really are testing. And I'm going to use that middle school example as a model. So sometimes we find that with middle schoolers, they might start seeming ambivalent about meeting with their mentor, or they say, I don't want my mentor anymore. And before we kind of let that go, we probe a little bit. So often what we find is that the mentee wants their mentor on their terms, which is not unusual for adolescents, young adolescents particularly. And there sometimes is that kind of competition between, I want to hang out with my friends and I want to see my mentor. So I'm just going to use this as an example. So what we will do in a situation like that is sometimes, if it's agreeable with the mentor and the student, is we will offer a flexible mentoring schedule. So instead of every week, maybe it's every other week, or whatever the case may be. Usually when we do this, we find that the relationships comes back stronger than ever the next year because you kind of passed the test, for lack of a better way of saying it. Often the kids are testing you to really see what you're, are you really there for them? So if you're finding that you're in this stage and there are some behaviors that are frustrating or confusing, or we're just not sure about, rather than kind of throwing in the towel, I encourage mentors to work with the liaisons, or I'm always here for support, so we can kind of problem solve together to kind of get through this hurdle. The final stage of mentoring, which was not addressed in the webinar that we did in June, but is the final stage, really is that transition stage. So that's the closure of the relationship. So that can happen in multiple ways. Either the child's going to move, or you know that you can no longer mentor for whatever reason. Maybe the student has had other circumstances that prevent the mentoring to occur, or even when our students are ready to graduate and move on to college or to the workforce. All of these are that transition stage when you're transitioning out of the relationship. So it's important to remember that, to put this closure in that relationship, to really share and reiterate to the student how you felt being their mentor, whether that you were happy to be part of their life, and to make sure that there is some closure in that relationship. The worst thing that could possibly really happen is if a mentor just stops showing up. That can do a lot more harm to the student than any progress that you, or impact that you have made positively if you kind of just don't show up anymore. So we just ask that, we put proper closure to all of our mentoring relationships, and that's very important to keep in mind. So for the full presentation on the mentoring lifecycle, like I said, is recorded, and that webinar is saved on our website if you'd like to delve into that a little bit further. Are there any questions or comments about this information that I've presented? Okay, so that pretty much sums up just some of the key points that I think that we need to ensure that we have a successful mentoring relationship and that we have a successful year. I want to thank you for participating today, and thank you for your commitment to DSABC, and I wish you all a very wonderful and happy new school year. I will stay on the line if there are any questions that I didn't address that I can help you with at this point. Please feel free to type them in the question box. Okay, well, there seems to be no questions. Well, you're welcome, Xavier. Thank you for participating. Thank you all, and again, if you have any questions at any time during the course of the school year, please feel free to email me or give me a call. I'm happy to support you as you support our students making a difference. Thank you.